Granular synthesis is an option that can bring unique results to your tracks. Whether you want to delay, reverse, or completely distort the signal, we'll take a look at a tool that does all this and more. Grainspace. Hi everyone and welcome, I hope you're doing well. My name is ThomC and today we're going to be taking a look at Grainspace by Audiority, a reverb and granular synthesis plugin for your productions. In this video, we'll take a listen to multiple examples that will run through Grainspace, and at the end of the video, we'll check out an example in context. Let's check it out.
You and I, a delicate rise, I'll never feel.
So this is the plugin's user interface, and before we take a look at the different features, granular synthesis actually takes samples or sounds that are broken into small bits that we call grains. So that's what you can see here on the left. So in the grain section, you've got a few different features. You've got the grain size, which basically is the size for each grain. Then you've got the distance, that is the distance between each grain, that can be increased, and if you increase it, the sound will be richer because the grains will overlap, and you will have a richer texture from that. You have a pitch control here that changes the pitch of the grains in semitones. Then you have a feedback, and if you increase it, you will have some sort of a shimmery effect that you'll hear, and that also responds or actually reacts to the change in pitch and grain size. So if you play with those three settings, you will have different results. Then you have the position control that is basically where the sample starts. And if you go to positive values, it will result in delay. Negative values will result in a reversed sound. So you can also time stretch the grains. A positive value will actually result in the acceleration of the signal, and you can slow down the signal with a negative value. And then you can also freeze the signal down here. Then you've got the filter section with a few different choices of filters, and you have the cutoff and resonance settings here with saturation, so you can saturate the grains if you want to. Then you've got the LFO section with two LFOs. You can change the wave, the rate, and the amount, and you can also change the destination, so the size, the position, and all that. So that is nice to actually modulate those settings, and you can also choose whether you want the LFO to be bipolar or unipolar here by clicking on the button here. And then you've got a randomize function, so you can randomize the size, position, stretch, and then you can choose the amount of that, and you've got two randomizers here. And then you've got a grain output, and you can change the playback mode from stereo to mono or mid and side. And then you've got a smear effect that uses filters to smear the signal, and you can change the grain volume and also the blend, so from dry to wet. Then we've got on the right a chord resonator, and you can change the chord type, major, minor, and all that. Then you can choose change the decay of the chord resonator. You can also change the tune or the root note of the chord. You've also got a gain control and a mix control here. And at the end of the plugin, you've got the reverb section with reverb, decay, and reverb mix. So in this first example, we'll be listening to some drums by Slate that I've tried to transform into some sort of reverberated drum roll at the end. And I've used the randomize function quite a bit in this demo that you can find at the top of the plugin. It's quite useful to generate creative ideas. So let's have a listen to it. In the next example, we'll also be listening to acoustic drums, and this makes me think that actually Grainspace could be good for that trip-hop kind of sound. Let's listen to it. And the next one is a more experimental drum delay sound. Now we're going to listen to the Mark 178 by UVI, and you'll notice that evolving pad sound in the background. So again, this is a pretty cool reverberated pad. So the next one is a very nice and dreamy sound that goes very well with the electro piano, and you'll notice that when the top left corner of the plugin is yellow, the plugin is actually bypassed, and when it's grey, it's active. Now we're going to listen to some sort of formant style effect on a bass line that comes from the SEM by Audiority. In the next example, I've used a brass synth by Audiority again with the SEM, and you'll notice how much the stretch setting that I've automated here can actually change the sound. The next example features some strings by the Orchestra from Sonuscore. We'll listen to how Grainspace adds chaos to the signal. The next example features concert strings too by Kirk, and we'll listen to how it actually adds atmosphere to the strings. Now we're going to listen to some electric guitars and listen to how the texture changes once the Grainspace plugin is activated. Again, another change of texture, this time with clean guitars. The following acoustic guitar comes from one of my songs called A Better Dance, and you'll hear that actually Grainspace at this time adds some top-end artifacts. And the following is actually the vocal of that same song, and you'll hear how it actually adds a ghostly effect on the vocal along with the reverb.
She said, my is not.
So in this example, we'll be using Grainspace on Venus by Sound Aaron, and you'll find the review of the library on my channel. And I've actually used the plugin on a strange pad and then on some drums. Listen to how the chord resonator actually brings back the harmony in the chord in the pad, and also how the plugin actually makes the drum pattern more complex. Right, let's now listen to the drums. Right, let's now listen to the pad as well as the drums in context now. So is Grainspace a plugin that would be useful for you in your productions? Well, I must admit that there's a bit of a learning curve with this plugin because there are settings that you're maybe not familiar with and it's not easy to use, but I think that if you put in the time, it will be rewarding in the end. Even though there are a good number of presets, I'd recommend you to start messing around with the settings and see what they do. What I like about granular synthesis is the feeling of unpredictability. It's the fact that for every sample that you'll be working with, you'll have different grains, and those things are pretty different from, from sample to sample. So if you do get this plugin, go through the presets, but also start from scratch, try the different settings and see what you come up with, and also try the randomize function at the top of the plugin. This can be useful as well. And also, very important, read the manual, RTFM as always. What I would have liked to see on the plugin would have been a master section with an input and output control, because the volume can be quite different between presets, and also when you change a setting, it can can actually get a lot louder. So in the end, it's a great creative tool, and I think you could actually run your own samples through it and make your own sample libraries, or also use it on buses to have original sounding delays, that kind of thing. There's so many different creative uses for it. So yeah, so thank you very much for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so yet, and let me know if you'd like me to do some maybe tutorials with this plugin in particular, or other plugins, other plugin reviews, and I'll be glad to do it. Thank you very much again, and I'll see you very soon. Bye bye.